All right, rewatchers, welcome back through that time portal and get ready for your next retro rewatch.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are back again with more Halloween movies. Make sure to like, subscribe, share the podcast. Good thing about this one, we actually watched this together when Chris came and visited me in Charlotte. We're going to talk about the 2022, maybe not a rewatch, but a newer watch, Smile, directed by
Yeah,
Parker Finn. First off, Chris, do you know anything about Parker Finn joints?
I really don't, except, I feel like he's kind of followed a similar path to like Damien Leone, right? Because,
Hmm.
I know he did the short Laura Can't Sleep, which was actually the first thing I saw before I even knew anything about Smile. And I don't know. Damien Leone, he did those two shorts, Full Circle and Terrifier, before actually making All Hallows Eve. And so there's kind of a trend there. I don't, shorts that are good in theater, like that's not really a thing that I've paid a lot of attention to over time. You know what I'm saying? But that seems like something kind of recently, having a good short and then leading to like an actual film. You know what I mean?
Do you know anything about this other short that he did, To Hide Behind? Gets a
Hide
6.5.
behind.
Yeah.
I don't.
Anything about that one?
I don't know anything about it. Which, like I said, Laura hasn't slept. I had seen it on YouTube. Like if you go to YouTube and look up like horror shorts, there's actually some pretty good playlists out there of like 3 and 4 minute movies, that kind of stuff. Wait a minute, is the Hide Behind the one? Actually, I think I do Ring of Salt. Is that what it is?
It's got the description is the lost deep in the forest, a lone backpacker encounters a peculiar stranger.
Yeah, no, so that's not the one I was thinking about, but I do remember back around the time when I watched Laura Hasn't Slept. There was another one that was like 3 or 4 minutes long with a mother and son that old tale of evil being warded off by salt. They had a salt circle, and that was really good too because it was during a storm and there was like a specter or something, a spirit that was trying to get them. And for 3 or 4 minutes, I'm gonna be honest, I think it was pretty intense. Now that I've brought it up, I really want to go back and look and see what that was. But since I watched it kind of around the same time that I watched Laura Hasn't Slept, I thought maybe that was it.
Yeah. Before we get into it, Chris, how about give us a little bit of that physical media you like to show?
Okay, so we do have Smile, which, if y'all notice, for anybody that has seen this on a shelf, this is a custom cover made by me.
There you go.
Um, go to Google and look up retromediaprinting.com. And yeah, so anyway, I think that's pretty cool. I think that's a better cover than the other one, just being honest with you. Um,
Oh yeah, speaking of that, Chris,
the
so we watched did we watch the 4K or what did we watch when we watched together? And it was good
so
quality actually.
yes, I think we watched it before Terrifier, but like in the
We
last
did.
video when we talked about your setup, I kind of talked about having to like to recalibrate the sound for it to work correctly between your soundbar and the TV. That was the one that gave us a bunch of trouble. That was when we had to readjust it like once or twice because for whatever reason, when we paused it, like the player and your TV seemed to get out of sync or something. But
Yep.
but when it was right and it was working, it was really good. Which this is a Paramount release, and I would expect it to be really good. This is the same company that put out like Top Gun Maverick, stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
which it had a budget of what, 17 million or something like that. So
Yeah.
which really for what it is, that might be a pretty good budget. I'm not sure because really in a lot of ways, most of the movie's practical. There's not a whole lot of CGI in it, I don't think. So, like, good planning, good acting. That's really at the end of the day, that's really what makes the movies the acting.
It
You know
is.
what I'm saying? Like, that the main actress, I cannot remember her name. I know she's the daughter of Kevin Bacon and Kira Sedgwick. I can't, that's real bad. I remember her parents and can't remember her, but she did a great job. Like, like the
Sochi
anxiety.
Sochi bacon?
Sosie Bacon. There
Sochi
you go.
bacon. Yep.
She was fantastic.
Yeah.
Her acting was just,
She
great.
was
From beginning to end, she just, she had these little body motions and like stances, and she
very
nailed
thin
it.
too.
Yeah, she was very skinny. So
Yep.
like for her, well, all right, so we'll just say it again. Spoilers ahead. Like,
Yeah.
so if you don't want to hear them, don't watch.
This is
But
spoiler review. Dun dun dun. Okay.
dun, dun, dun. So, but by the end of it, we realized that her entire life has been trauma, and we can talk about what that is by the time we get there. But because her whole life is trauma, you gotta it would be very easy to conceive that she has sleeping disorders, eating disorders, all these other things that are associated with mental illness, which is interesting because she is actually a psychiatrist.
Mm.
So to think about that, she should be pretty in control of these different mental problems. She's not. You understand
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And I mean, she really struggles with it, which by the way, I think that's actually pretty common in real life too. Whenever you're just constantly beat over the head with everybody else's problems, it's going to put you in a negative headspace. I mean, they've got a term for it. I don't know what it is, but I would imagine with what has happened in her early childhood up through now, like, I mean, she's in a deep, dark place before we even get to the creature. But
Is that?
the 4K was great. The
Yeah.
sound was great. The sound design was great. And that Laura Hasn't Slept is on there as well, which is really good because they really, in a lot of ways, they tie that short into the movie because in the short, Laura Hasn't Slept. She's at a psychiatrist's office
Mhm.
talking with him, and slowly everything dissolves away to understand that she's inside of her own mind. She's actually asleep or something, and the creature, the entity, already has her. And that person that plays Laura, you've already got it pulled up. Maybe you could, well, she's great as well. Like I was really surprised initially after having seen Laura Hasn't Slept, a few years ago, that she wasn't the main character in Smile. However, the way they did it, I get it because the movie starts with our protagonist meeting her and that character of Laura explaining everything that's going to happen for the rest of the movie, like what impact the Smile Demon has. And then, like in the short, the demon overtakes her, and then instead of seeing it inside her mind, we see it physically where she slits her own throat in front of the doctor and all that stuff.
Mhm. Definitely, that was an intense scene for sure, and we'll get into that.
Yeah, and it
Yep.
doesn't get any easier from there. It just continues to compound after that.
It
The
does.
movie's pretty long too. It's like just shy of 2 hours. So I mean,
That's
it's
correct.
it's kind of a slog. I mean, to go that 2 hours and just constantly get berated and beat over. But again, if we go back to the trauma aspect of it, I think that's where it really hits. There's no let up. There's no relief. There's not necessarily overcoming it. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? It's just constantly beating you down and exhausting you.
Yep. And you also mentioned there was no comedy pauses or comedy breaks. It was
Yeah,
just straight.
relief.
It is. Yeah.
And when we talked about Terrifier, I talked about that, and I kind of mentioned that this to me is a real horror film, like because
Hmm.
there there are horror films out there that I honestly don't even know why they exist. I mean, they're super gory. There's no real redeemable qualities to how they tell stories or anything like that, and they're just kind of crap. That's not this. Okay, it's also not Michael Myers, or it is very disturbing. It doesn't have a whole lot of gore. It has some, but doesn't
Yeah.
have a lot. But
Right.
what it has is very impactful, and there's no
It is.
let up. So like you get this just like real horror feeling that's really horror for horror's sake.
Yeah.
That's not just entertainment. It's not just a date movie for Friday night. In fact, I could see this being a date movie for Friday night that didn't get you the intended like outcome. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Do you think because the whole like insomnia type thing, any maybe influence from like Nightmare on Elm Street or any of those classic movies from it? Because that whole
So
like you're the demon or the spirit playing with you. You haven't been sleeping. You start seeing things. You think any of that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you and I were
Yeah.
talking about that while we were watching it. That like, I
Hmm.
mean, so everything I'm fixing to say, I don't mean to put down the movie at all because at the end of the day, I mean, especially now, I mean, really at the end of the day, there's like 16 different story archetypes, and it's just kind of a cycle of those 16. So like everything is somewhat influenced by something else,
Hmm.
whether it's a classical story like Beauty and the Beast or something new. But I think the movie has influences from Rosemary's Baby,
Hmm.
because in Rosemary's Baby, like, have you ever seen Rosemary's Baby? It's a Roman Polanski movie.
Yeah, it's been years, but yeah,
Well,
I
so I
don't
mean, the
remember.
setup of that movie, just very quick, is you've got a new couple that move into an apartment building. If I remember correctly, her husband's aspiring an aspiring actor. He's struggling to get roles, and there's this polite elderly couple that like lived next to him who happened to be Satanists, we find out by the end of the movie. And Rosemary's actually impregnated by Satan or the devil. But
Mm-hmm.
the entirety of the movie is really it straddles the line between, is she legitimately going crazy through isolation and loneliness and misunderstanding like the what she's seeing in her life, or is this for real? Like, is there really a demon cult, and is there really all this stuff going on? There's similarities here, because especially by the end of the movie we find out how unreliable of a narrator Sosie's character is, that the movie is fairly ambiguous up to a point, about whether, is it really trauma like hallucinations, is it real or not, like for instance, let's talk about the cat. Did the demon kill the cat and put it in the box,
That's
or
right.
did Sosie kill the cat and put it in the box? Which, by the way, I called that after the cat went missing.
Sure,
And
you did.
so, which by the way, in a little while, if I get an opportunity, I want to talk about trauma. And I think the director did that on purpose because one of the first signs of trauma and mental illness is people that are abusive to animals. So I really think that there's a reason that that's one of the first real things that she does that noticeable by other people. She
Right.
we don't know if she's hallucinating or not. You're not hallucinating the dead cat. The dead cat's really dead. It's really a party, and the child has really opened it as a present.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
So I kind of got on a tangent from whenever you were asking me about movies, but I think there's a little bit of Rosemary's Baby in there. I absolutely think there's a little bit of Nightmare on Elm Street, because in Nightmare on Elm Street, you've got Freddy Krueger who's able to control dreams. Well,
Mm-hmm.
in this, it's not that she has to be asleep, but in a way, she's almost in a waking nightmare. She's not really sleeping. She's having these other problems. And I don't know if you've ever had insomnia. You know me pretty well. Back when I was in college, there was like 3 weeks where I got 8 hours of sleep an entire week. I was a diagnosed insomniac. There is a point where sometimes you don't know what's exactly real. It's like you're living in a daydream,
Yeah.
right? So, but there are some similarities where the smile creature is able to alter reality somehow through a hallucination or this, that, and the third, the same way Freddy is able to make a dream look like reality and then turn it on its ear. You know what I'm saying? I've never seen It Follows, but I know someone was talking to me and said that it was also very much like It Follows. But the next thing that
Yeah.
I really feel like it
You
is
need to watch that one. You'll enjoy it. That's good.
I have it. I have a 4K of it that I got
Yeah,
from
that's good.
Second Sight. I just hadn't caught up with it yet. But The
Yeah.
Ring is another one that I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's because The Ring, you've got the videotape that's got the ring. When you see the ring, you die. Okay. Well, it's like, I mean, the catchphrase of this thing is like literally the same. You see the ring, you die. You see the smile, you die. Like, you know what I'm saying? We've just replaced the ring for the smile. Although I got to admit, that's a really effective replacement
It is.
because like, I mean, there are statistics out there to talk about facial, like the way you look and what it means. And it's actually really interesting, different cultures, the way they'll see a frown versus a smile versus an eye squint or a blink or whatever that has different meanings in different cultures. Well, like 97% of the world, or 98%, recognizes a smile as happiness,
Mm-hmm.
as like welcoming and open. And it's what binds humanity in the best way possible. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So by taking that trope and that motive and turning it into something malignant and something malevolent, it's very effective, and it's very unnerving, because the smiles in this thing, the way the people they kind of turn their nose down, the smile gets real wide and real
Mm-hmm.
toothy. Like, I mean, it's really good. And the thing is, like, the actors were able to do that without the director doing anything to like modify it,
Yeah.
you know? And that's really, really, really cool. So, I mean, as far as the movies are concerned, I mean, those are the ones that stood out to me. I don't know if you saw any other like comparisons in there, but there you go.
Yeah, I mean, just with the whole smiling thing, maybe I'm going out on a little reach here. Maybe like Joker or something. Remember, because he was all about smiling. Yeah, I don't know if that had anything influence. And then also, I guess maybe you want a film with the trauma of childhood. Because she kind of went back to. her childhood at the old house. That could be something with that.
Well,
I
so
don't know
like,
what movie though.
well, I mean, so like, first off, first and foremost, I think the movie is really kind of an illustration of trauma. I
Yeah,
really think that's kind of the basics of it.
yeah,
Because I mean, trauma as a general rule is cyclical. If there's, whenever you go to the doctor and you're having problems, they will ask you, is there a history of mental illness in your family? Well, why do they do that? Because it's cyclical, because there's stuff that's genetic, there's stuff that's personality driven, like environment driven. Like if your parents yelled, you're likely to yell. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
like the smile monster itself is cyclical. The whole point is for it to keep going, it's got to create trauma. So
Mhm.
like I think if I remember correctly, like every cycle of this thing is about a week. So
Yeah,
it's got a week where it tries to break you down through sleep loss, eating, all these things that happen to where it can actually possess you. But I think that that's what it's doing. It's this cycle. So like, hey, you saw this trauma, and through that I was able to imprint on you. Now I'm going to create this trauma that really I didn't even have to create. I just had to like round out the edges, because in each one of these cases the person that got the imprint already had like somebody in their life that they had seen die tragically some way or another, and it wasn't the person that had the smile. It was someone prior to that. So it was like the smile demon already kind of had like, like Santa Claus has got his naughty and nice list. The smile monster's got its list of like victims out there that, hey, these are the people I can imprint on, and I've got to like manipulate my person to come into contact with them. At least that's what I believe. And then the cycle repeats itself: trauma over trauma over trauma over trauma, right?
right.
But then,
It's a good breakdown.
past that, like I said, so I mean, with mental illness like depression, I'm gonna say depression. Like there's, you can get into more mental illnesses like split personality, stuff like that. But let's just use depression because that's
Mhm.
actually pretty common, right?
It is
So like he's using
anxiety and
this.
depression.
Right, and that's great, and they go hand in hand usually, right? So,
Mhm.
like, I think the movie does a good job of like, people that are depressed don't see value in themselves. Like this woman doesn't see value in herself. She constantly relives the trauma of, not saving her mother. Act like she did not make her mom do the overdose, but she actively did not call for help.
Yeah,
So, um, did she kill her? How do you look at that? She didn't put the pills down her throat, but she didn't save her either. So, and I mean, however you want, whichever side of the coin you want to get on of what fault she does or doesn't have as a small child, you can agree that as a child, a mother is, let's go back to the Crow, that movie we talked about, weeks ago, mother's the name of God on the hearts and minds of all children, the hearts and lips, whatever it was. So it's the same kind of thing, right? Um, but then like after that, there's the scene where um the monster, I guess, when we start to see it, when she's isolated herself, it begins to grow
hmm,
right after
yeah,
it's been revealed that the monster has taken the form of her mom. I mean, I think that is an illustration of like it overcoming her, the depression or whatever you want to call it. It makes you feel small. It makes you feel like the depression, despair, anxiety, it's bigger than you are. You can't control it. You can't help
yeah,
it. You can't fix it. You understand what I'm saying? It's bigger than you. I'm the child, it's the adult.
yeah,
And, even before that, so like another part of those depressions and like it are intrusive thoughts of suicide. You don't want to have them. They pop in,
mhm,
right? You had the scene where she's in the car and she's envisioning killing her patient with the possibility, because I mean, again, you could argue at that point, was the smile in her mind or was the smile a legitimate imprint? And you had the prison, the guy from South America, whatever it was, that he said that if you kill someone else, the thing will leave you an imprint. Whoever sees you do the murder. Um, she's got the intrusive thought of murdering someone else to get the
right,
imprint off of her. Okay, so I mean, we've got all these different things that I mean, plus what we already talked about with the anxiety and these other things. And even beyond that, a lot of times whenever you're depressed, like I think there's a stat 25, 30, 35, 40% of Americans deal with clinical depression.
Mhm.
Okay, well, that's a minority. That's a lot of a minority, but it's still a minority. And if that's something that you talk about with someone else that hasn't experienced it, they do not understand it. And whether they want to or not, a lot of times they do judge you for it. It's one of those things that becomes standoffish of like, that person's weird. I don't know how to deal with them. They have mental and emotional problems that I don't want to be a part of.
Mhm.
Okay. That happens throughout this movie. Family and friends don't believe her. They push her away. They judge her, which finally leads to her going into isolation, which, from a storytelling standpoint, we can hop into that a little later. But again, from the illustration of what trauma is and what it does to a person, if that's what the director was doing, she goes into isolation where because she's in isolation with no help, no one to believe her and all this other problem because her ex-boyfriend that believed her
Mhm.
was a figment of her imagination created by the monster to control her and keep her where it needed her until the right moment. So she never actually had that,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So that's another thing of most of the time there's isolation. And in that isolation, that's usually where the script flips. And, that's where we wind up having suicide or school shootings or, this other stuff where society failed for whatever reason. And I think, again, we've got a pretty good illustration of that in this movie. Does that make sense? Or am I just completely off base?
No, you're good, man. Those are a good breakdown. It brings up a lot of the like, you know, society's issues these days and mental illness. It's good deep breakdown.
Well, and I think what's really neat about I don't know, I think horror is a very legitimate genre. I don't think
It
it
is.
gets the respect it deserves. That's
I agree.
honest to goodness. Which, if
Mhm.
you go back to like early theater and stuff like that, I'm talking like Grease, okay? Like horror and comedy were some of the main forms of entertainment they did. So if you were to use something like that as like original playwright type stuff, I think that would prove it's a viable movie type. But
Yep.
what I'm saying about this movie, and one reason I think it is so much better than average, is number one, you've got all that stuff like we talked about with Saw and some of these other great movies, with the sound design and the environments and the jump scares and all this other stuff. But even past that, I feel like you've got deeper thought into an illustrative idea of trauma. You know what I'm saying? And I think that makes it really good. I think that makes it better than your average flick, and why I would say it's a real horror film as compared to like a popcorn movie.
Yeah, I completely agree. It doesn't get the respect it deserves. It's kind of, hey, it's harsh, cheesy, slasher, cheap movies, but it does have a following. Obviously, it does make money. And speaking of that, look at the box office here. So originally 17 million, or it is a $17 million budget, makes 105, which is great. 22 million dollar opening weekend, 217 worldwide. Also, reading from the trivia, this is originally going to be a Paramount Plus straight to streaming, but it had really good response for some of the test audiences. So it ends up being a great hit and spawns Smile 2, which is currently out, and I believe it was number one at the box office as well.
Yeah, I think it's gonna kill it. Now, from everything I've read, it's actually really good too. Like it's not just a respin, but
Yeah.
which is always, like let's go back to like the Ring. That was one that I felt like it was very similar to, and Ring was excellent, which it was a
Mhm.
remake of a Japanese film, by the way, Ringu 1,
Mhm.
2, and 0. But like Ring 2 was pretty bad from what I remember. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then I never saw Rings, the third one. But like I've read that this one's actually really good. I think on the IMDb it's got some, but it only has like 13 or 14,000 somewhere around there reviews, whereas like this one's got like 200,000
Yeah.
reviews, and it's like a 6.5 or something. Which
6.5.
for a horror movie to be at 6.5, that's really like a 7.5. I mean, I think there's kind of a almost like a a scale that a bell curve kind of thing of I don't think it gets the love it really should. And then it's kind of funny, TV shows I think are actually on the other end. You'll have TV shows that get like 8.5s and 9s that are probably really somewhere around like an 8, or a 7.5, where there's a scale both ways. But I think there's a lot still to do here, which I mean, we can talk about that. I know you were bringing up the numbers, and I don't know if you had more you wanted to say about that. And I clearly haven't seen Smile 2, but I mean, I would like to. But I think there's a lot more here to be original than just trying to rehash a cliche token, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think they could. There's a broad. I mean, they could go all kind of certain ways and bring out different out characters from it. Did want to add a couple of trivia things, by the way. So this is according to IMDb. A couple of days before the September 30th, 2022 release, actors from the film showed up at various baseball games, sitting behind home plate, dead still and smiling to the camera, unmoving despite fans in the audience being understandably concerned while wearing smile shirts. Another another soon appeared in the background with the crowd during the Today Show. So I think that kind of freaked him out. Think about if you said people randomly smiling, had these shirts on, not knowing what it is.
Yeah, I think, that was their way of marketing it to be like, see, it's creepy, isn't it? This is what our protagonist is going through and nobody believes her. That's a really good campaign. Can you imagine being the actor though for like 3 hours, like for a baseball game, having to do that? Like,
Mhm.
do you get up? Like, did they do it for 3 hours? They do it for an inning, get up and leave, and just like,
Yeah.
I'd like to know that. But I mean, I don't think I saw any of the baseball games that had that. I mean, I watch the Braves a lot, but
Yeah.
I certainly don't remember like Tom Glavine in the announcer's booth going, "Who's that creepy person behind the catcher?"
Yeah. That's
Like,
fun. Did you know what the original name was?
hold on,
All
let me
right.
think. I feel like what was the lead character's name? Was it something's wrong with her or something like that? Because like the
Yeah.
short was Laura hasn't slept, and I think the
Yeah.
other one before they came out was like something's wrong with Amanda. What's is that her name?
Something's wrong with the rose. Very close.
Rose. That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yep. Smile's good. Smile's a better title.
it
Like, I
is.
mean, it's very catchy, it's very memorable, it sticks with you. It's 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 pertinent to the demon. It's much
Yeah, I mean,
better.
let's just say if you took they knew nothing about the film and you were going to take a friend or whatever, like, hey, we're going to watch Smile. If you had no idea what it was, you're thinking like, comedy, drama, little would they
Yeah,
know.
I'm gonna be honest. If I didn't know anything about it and somebody said, "Hey, let's go watch Smile," I'd be like, "No, I don't want to go to the Ronald McDonald house."
Yeah,
Like, I
that's
mean, you know what I'm saying? I'd be
yeah,
like, that sounds. It's. I don't think it would be a good title in a vacuum, but I think with the marketing they did and everything else, I think it's a fantastic title. You understand what I'm saying?
oh, it is. Made a lot of money there. So let's dive deep into maybe the ending in the house and what stood out with the monster and the jump scares got me like to me I'm pretty tolerant but this kind of like
It
I said
had a
it got to
lot.
it had a lot it was intense it was like one of those like ooh kind of glad that's over.
I feel like it had like somewhere between like 10 and 15 jump scares. And it's to hear that, it feels like you would kind of get numb to it, but you
Yeah,
really don't. It gets worse as you go. And I think it's because it doesn't have any like, comedy or anything to it. It just gets worse and worse and worse. And I mean,
yeah,
like the ones early in the movie are, I mean, they're kind of low impact. Hey, there's something behind the fridge, no big deal.
yeah,
By the time you get to the end, like the monster, the smile monster, it's like if they did it wrong, it could have been like really goofy and really
mhm,
crappy, but I didn't think it was at all. I thought it was a really good monster. And I
yeah,
mean, like, there's a lot of it had all these multiple jaws, which really
mhm,
kind of worked with the smile thing because it was really grotesque and it was related to the mouth. But even past that, I mean, it really, it's like consuming, it goes into the mouth of the person it's
yeah,
possessing. And so you get this kind of feeling that it's like a soul possessor, it's a soul consumer. And then what's really creepy is just like, is there any chance of ever getting away? Like, I mean, are you in some kind of like really awful purgatory, or is that hell?
yeah.
I mean, there's a few different interpretations you could have there.
Even when they're burning down the house.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
well, I mean, which of course the movie. So there's a lot of movies out there that have like three or four endings, and they're really annoying to me. This
mhm,
was not one of them. This one had like maybe three endings, and it was really good. There was a real reason for each of them because of how the monster was manipulating reality versus what it became. So, but all right, so I kind of alluded a minute ago to like I feel like there's a lot more to go on here. Like that's kind of it. There's the concept in the movie of it having kind of an incubation period of like a week. And then, at that point in time, it's got to feed and move on to the next. And Rose has this idea of like, well, if I go and isolate myself where nobody can see me, and it gets past a week or whatever, like would it be able to do it, or would that put an end to it, or whatever. And I mean, so that does kind of beg some questions, like does it starve? Would it, like, if there was it and she just killed herself alone in that house, would it have evaporated? Would it have gone back to Hades, hell, whatever you want to call it? um what how does it work? Does it have helpers that help like direct people that we didn't see? I mean, there's a lot of different opportunities here that the guy could take the thing. Like, there's kind of this concept of mythology of the true name Nemesis. We never got the name of the demon. If she was able to invoke the name of the demon, would it be something where she could have it expelled? Kind of something kind of like The Exorcist or The Conjuring or something. And I think he did a phenomenal job, like making it very intriguing, very interesting. You're on it to the last second to see if there's a way for her to get out of it, and she doesn't. And really, kind of because she doesn't, like that in and of itself is what kind of creates where we've got more opportunity for story because we didn't get a resolve. She didn't survive it. Can you? Is it even possible? Is invoking the blood of Jesus over, you're not going to work on this thing. Now, of course, being a Christian, I think that's crap. But from a storytelling standpoint, you understand what I'm getting at. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, is there just no hope?
Yeah.
Which, if we go back to our conversational trauma, that's really depressing. If that is in fact the message, is that there's no trauma the trauma can't be overcome, which in some cases is probably real and unfortunate. But it would be great if we do get another movie where we can say, hey, the trauma is overcomable. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? There's more opportunity there. And I definitely want to see Smile 2, beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Oh, yeah. Also, another good cameo that popped up in there, Cal Penn, Dr. Morgan,
Yeah.
from Harold and Kumar. I believe he was Kumar, right?
House. Yeah.
Yeah, House. He popped up in there. I'd say the creepy one that kind of got me from the start was the original girl that smiled and she just slit her throat. Remember from like
Yeah.
that that got me because you were she was therapist, psychiatrist, and then she just does that, and then you kind of see the trauma of all like the workers coming in and everything, like damn. And as we talked about it, I've heard before, usually therapists or psychologists or some of them, they got issues too, because I think they see everything and they're around it all the time. And I think it causes them to have their own like issues and depression and everything too. It's like therapists, when you talk to them, like, man, I got some of the same issues. It's almost like they talk to you to I don't know, help with some of their issues. You're talking to them. I don't know.
So let's talk about that just real quick. I don't know how
Yeah.
much time we've got left, but
Yeah.
talking about talking and the therapist
Mm.
in the movie, every single time she touched the phone, something bad happened. Every
That's,
single time.
yeah.
So her ability to communicate and her ability to try and get help was always cut off. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? But the
That's a good
movie is
point.
full. The movie is full of Easter eggs on stuff like that. If you really go back and look at it, like there's like say on her phone, like there'll be pictures of people that they're trying to call her or she's trying to call, and we'll see the picture and it's just a normal picture like me or you right now. And
Yeah.
then if you look at it again, look at it close, the same person's going,
Yeah. Oh,
stuff
yeah.
like that. There are earrings that are flipped upside down. Like there's a lot of the girl you're talking about that cut her throat. Like whenever they put the body bag on her, there's nothing there except for the blood where it's like seeping into the body bag, and it's the smile. The Paramount logo at the beginning turned into a smile. Like the stars flipped from upside down,
Yeah.
from over the mountain to under. And I mean, so there's again, I think the movie's even got a lot of rewatchability just to be like, hey, did I actually see everything?
Yeah. Yeah. Really good by the director to kind of put all that in there. So yeah, that was really good. But I was all overall impressed. Like I don't know, because originally like, all right, let's watch it, but it was good.
Yeah,
I
and that was your call. You told me to bring that, and I hadn't caught up with it yet. So that was That was probably the best movie of the weekend.
It
And
was.
then we slowly went down every movie we watched after it.
Yeah, yeah, it was interesting weekend. Smile, All Hallows Eve, Terrifier, and The Last Kumite. Guilty pleasure in there. But yeah, all in all, it was good. And part two, and maybe we'll be able to catch Terrifier 3 out eventually. I know you need to see Terrifier 2 to catch up. I wouldn't mind actually rewatching that.
I
So
think if you go to Umbrella's website right now, it is covered in Art the Clown. I think they've got 3 days of Terrifier. Yesterday, they put up a bunch of stickers and some posters and stuff like that. Tonight, and of course, I mean, because it's Australia, it's like, 12 hours ahead of us or something. But tonight, they're supposed to put up stuff. And then on day 3, it's supposed to be a huge surprise. I bet there's going to be like a super massive limited edition of like all the movies together or something. And I'm kind of looking forward to that because if it is, I'm definitely ordering it. And they say it's going to be here before Christmas, so you can have Christmas with art.
and it's got a Christmas theme in it. So yeah,
Yeah.
that should be
So
good.
is it time to hit the rewind button?
It is.
All right. We'll hit
Appreciate
that
it. Make sure
rewind
to
button,
like,
get to the video
subscribe,
store.
share the podcast. If hopefully everybody's still around. And as always, be kind,
Be
rewind.
kind, rewind.